Chase, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you coming on, taking time out of your day to do this.
Sure. We've talked about this for a while now, so
yeah,
excited.
Got some good subjects for to talk about today with you. Things I think both of us passionate about in some sense. I think it enables or it enamors a lot of our lives. Something that we're very focused on. Something that's important.
Right.
So, how has social media changed the way we connect and fall in love? You think it's bringing us closer or pushing us apart?
I think it has the ability to bring us closer, but I think the way we've pushed social media in our lives, it's driven us further away and made love harder, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. I guess personally, I am in a relationship right now, and like I can just say from experience, like it's just brought anxiety and like certain things that don't need to be in a relationship to both of us at certain points, and it makes communicating with each other in our social media life
anxiety
that much more important.
Anxiety about
I don't know, just like comparing ourselves to other people, like worrying about other people that they're following on social media, like obviously you don't want them following like their exes and stuff, right? And so like that just brings a lot of anxiety. I mean, I've had experience before, like maybe they compare themselves to like past relationships that I've been in, or like they compare themselves to other girls I follow, and like I don't want that. Because that's anxiety on them that they don't deserve.
Well, I think it brings up the point of like how authentic people really are. Yeah. I think in society you can, in social media in particular, you can create like your own persona. Yeah. You get to tell people about who you are, and it creates this false narrative. I think when you get into relationships, I don't know if you've ran into this, but you expect something from someone, or you're expecting a certain person, and then you meet them and they're much different. Yeah. And it often leads to disappointment.
Right.
In the wrong way.
Well, I guess if we're talking about social media, like my girlfriend, she was in a sorority at Iowa State, and you see in sorority girls' social medias and Instagrams, right? It's like, they all look very similar, right? Like very perfect pictures. Right. And so like, I even told her, I was like, if I never like started texting you, like I would have never talked to you like over social media or in person, because like,
there's a stigma there.
Yeah, 100%. And like, I've seen frat guys' social medias too, and it's like, you kind of just assume that that's who they go for, right? Like you're like, I don't know if they'd go for me.
So like, do you think it's important though to leverage social media to like create a persona that's good for dating? Because I don't think people think and reflect on that often. I think a lot of people will post things, and it's good to just post things that you want to post.
Right.
But they don't think in terms of like, okay, someday I'm going to meet somebody I want. And maybe some people don't care. Right. But I think personally, it causes a wave of issues later on down the road.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would agree. I think posting
like what you post,
scandalous stuff, like I think that's a question you have to say, like, okay, is this something I'd be proud of later on when I do find my person? Like, is that something they're going to want me to have on there? And is this something that I want other people to see when I'm dating someone?
Or in the initial, like, what you look for when you're looking at those things, guys put girls in the categories. Particularly, I can talk about guys, but I think guys put women into categories when they look at their social media. Yeah. Is this a girl I want to date? Right. And maybe it's a little presumptive to sit there and make assumptions about people, but at the same time, like, you are responsible for creating your own reputation. Yeah. I think the biggest part of social media, the downfall that I've seen, is the options, the endless options, particularly women. Like, women have all these options. Men, not so much. I think it's created a drastic, like, other side of things for men. But thoughts on that, like the option side of things?
Right. I mean, I think it's obvious that women get hit up more than guys do. I could be wrong. Wrong.
I don't think you are.
But from past experience, like my own girlfriends, other friends, like I've seen it. They get hit up way more. So it's just like when you're a guy and you're dating a girl and she's attractive, right? Like, I feel like we pride ourselves on dating someone with.
They reflect you.
Yeah, exactly. Not saying I'm the best looking guy, but anyways, but like it is something you worry about, or something I've worried about personally, like I've had my girlfriends get hit up before, like DM before. And it's just like, that's where you just have to literally hope and pray that like your trust that you've built with them, it sticks, because if it doesn't, it's easy to hide stuff in social media now,
Well, and I think that like the idea too of, you have endless options. Women are hypergamous by nature. Yep. They're looking for the best possible option when it comes to a man. Right. And now in social media, men, again, can create their own persona, even if it's not the right persona. And I think it leads to again, people falling in love with people's potential, not their patterns.
Absolutely.
I think it's so important to find out what kind of patterns these people have. How do they respond?
Right.
I mean, you do need to read into things like that, right? You need to read into what a girl is posting on social media or what a guy is posting on social media.
Right.
Like it's right there for the going. Like these people, that's what you put out on social media is how you want to be perceived by people.
Right.
And it just sucks because social media can be a really powerful tool, but it's also created that wide dating pool. Like now you have a dude in Ohio who, you know, I've seen girls that's like Ohio State football players hitting them up. And it's like, maybe that guy doesn't have things going for him in certain aspects I do, right? Like that's all relative.
Stability, like financial stability.
But the status itself, you know, who he is, already creates this like disadvantageous like spot for men, right? And it sucks because you can really fake your way to that. You know, you can seem like a completely different person than you are in real life and what your values are. But then people complain about, you know, women in particular complain about, well, why do guys see me this way? Or why, you know, these are my values. And it's like, you would never know because men take what they see right away and like take that for, you know, its face value. Right. And it creates fake connection. I mean, it's a fake connection. When you talk about someone over social media.
Like at first it might seem like a real connection. Right. But over time that will get exposed because you don't establish like a good foundation and like it's literally just based on that, it's going to wither away over time. Right.
And specifically when you're talking over, it's when you're not meeting people, because we live in a society where meeting people is like anxious, right? Yeah. And so like I'd read a study where it talked about the fake connection that's like produced in social media, text, dating apps. It creates like isolation because you're longing to see that person and you're falling in love with the person that they are there. Right. But it's easy to just text anything or say anything over the phone. Right. And I think it just causes a lot of problems down the road. Yeah. But how do you see it being like I know you had said it can push, you know, it can be really good. Where do you feel that? What makes you think that, I guess?
I mean, I think it comes down to what your intentions are when you're posting stuff too. Like, I think you can categorize it into two categories. It's people that post because they actually don't care what they post and they're just doing it because they want to, right? Like, it makes them happy, shows who they really are. But then I think the other category is the people that do it to look good for like other people. Like a girl can do it to look good for a guy to hit them up, or a guy can do it because he wants to look good for other women, right? Like, I think those are kind of two separate categories. So like,
when I'd be remiss to sit there and say that people feel like, oh, I post what I like or what I love, my passions. Right. Well, I don't think your passion is flashing your body online. Right. Like I'd be remiss to say that some people, that's what they want. Right. I understand wanting to feel good in your own body, but what signal are you portraying? Right. You know?
Well, and the problem is a lot of times, like, I don't want to just talk about women either. Like guys flex monetary stuff all the time too to stand out. But like a woman, if she posts something that's revealing, right, and then she does get hit on, some women are like, well, I don't like when guys hit on me like that. It's like, well, that's what happens though, you know.
But then guys want to be like, well, I want a girl that loves me. You know, this conundrum that we run into is we want people to love us for what we do, right, or who we are, and not for what we do. But the thing is we are sitting here going, why do you not love me for who I am? But yet I'm sitting here portraying someone and doing things so that you love me for what I do. Right. And it's like you're competing against exactly what you want. And I think it's something we all at times run into. And you have to take a step back and go, okay, where am I putting my energy and how am I putting it there? Because do people love me for the things I have and the things I can do for them? Right. How can I benefit them? Right. Specifically in dating, you know, it's a signal. It's a status signal to sit there and go, I have money. I'm stable. Right. And women do look for that. Right. And social media is such a good way to be able to push that out.
And I think that's where social media is so hard to portray like what you actually provide outside of like your looks. You know, it's so hard to show that like you can provide like stuff that isn't monetary. It's like you have to meet that person, in my opinion, to really learn that stuff.
To understand,
Right. Like my girlfriend, I didn't know that before I met her. Like I thought she was good looking, right? But like I didn't know about her beliefs in God truly until I talked to her about it. You know, I didn't know what her goals were. Like that stuff you have to find out when you meet them.
Right. And you know what?
Social media is hard to figure out.
You have to come to the table and be willing to push away all the presumptions you made right away, which is a hard thing to do. Yeah. It's your ego sitting there and you have to table those things and be like, okay, who is this person? And that's hard, but I think you get better at it as you go through life and you see the world for what it really is.
Right.
So I ask you kind of off that point, do you think soulmates are a thing? Or do you think love is more like choice, effort, timing?
As much as I wish I could say, I feel like the person like I'm with right now is like the one and only person, right? Like we finally found each other. I don't believe that that's true. I feel like that my girlfriend could find someone else. She could be happy with them, right? But at the end of the day, I have to do my absolute best to do that, because if I focus on her being with other people, all it does is just tear us down. So like, I don't think there's just a soulmate for you.
But do you think I think that might be a healthy perspective to come from this person could go be happy with somebody else.
Yeah,
there are
absolutely.
other options.
Absolutely.
So what am I going to do to make sure that I become the best option?
Right. It
Because
pushes you as a person.
If you focus on it the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, getting content is one of the biggest downfalls of a relationship. It's like, I've done that before in past ones. Like you get so content and comfortable with someone that like you stop doing things that you started doing when you first started hanging out. Like I took her on like a date every time we hung out for the first like 6 times. And it's just like, you can't stop dating, whether you get married or not. Like
I remember you having that conversation with me. You can't stop dating.
Yeah.
I won't stop dating you.
Right. Even when you get married, you're still dating, right? Obviously there's like certain things that get tied together more when you get married, correct? But you always keep dating.
Well, keeping your partner in the focus, even when you have kids.
Exactly.
How important it is to have time with that person still.
Right.
Because you created that whole life with that person. Mm-hmm. And you do so many things and move your life around realistically for that person in a lot of ways, right? Bend your worldview to them and vice versa.
Right. I mean, as a man, when you get married, you leave your mother and father and you're tied to now your wife. That's how it is, right?
But I truly believe that you can create, if it given the chance. I think it takes being open. I think it takes certain walls being put down. But I truly think that everybody can connect on some level. Right. Like to say that 2 people couldn't fall in love, I think they would have to have such vastly worldviews like separated. Mm-hmm. But what's to say that you get put in a situation, and it's hypothetical, but you're the last 2 people on earth, right? And you spend time with this person and you might have differing views, values, whatever. I think at a certain point, you become attached to that person in some way. You learn to love that person. Like it becomes you know what I'm saying? Like you're forced into that situation a little bit.
The real question is that a healthy love?
Maybe not.
Because personally, I feel like unless your values and views aren't lined up for the most part, not saying they have to 100% be the exact same, because nobody's the same. But like, if they're not generally aligned, like to me, I feel like
certain values,
your love is based on other stuff that might not be healthy.
Right.
You know,
there's certain values.
Right. Like a lot of people have soul ties because they have sex a lot.
Right.
And that's very unhealthy. Like we both have a buddy that was like that for a while.
It's the closest thing to us.
Right. It feels so good in the moment, but like it's not going to last.
You need to know what you're doing in that
right.
moment. Right.
And like if their values aren't aligned with yours, it's going to eventually split
That's
apart.
where the resentment comes in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Resentment.
Well, and I'd read some studies on this, but like animals in particular, studying their neuroscience, like rodents in particular, they actually bond over smell. Like that's what they bond over.
Okay.
Humans actually bond over smell and sight.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And then like you look into the old classic tale of like women fall in love with what they hear, men fall in love with what they see. That's why men will lie and women will wear makeup. Right? There's like the facade that you can you know, put into. So I think it is the idea of soulmates. Personally, to me, I just don't think it's real. I think there's just so many people that are potential mates. Right. They say a lot of fish in the sea. Right. But
and that sucks
I think you have to create that.
Right. That sucks to feel too, that like, you know, there's other people out there.
Well, you hear a lot of people too, like they get in relationships and you hear those 2, like why them? Right. That right there, I think just goes to show like people's compatibility meter, internal compatibility meter, I think is way off. Mm-hmm. I think it's more off than it's ever been. Right. Because I think a lot of people say they want one thing, but they don't actually do. Like it's a fantasy, it's a yearning for something, and then they get it, and it's like, this isn't as fulfilling as I thought it might have been.
Well, and this is like kind of similar to the social media thing, but like a lot of these TV shows, like it just portrays a false sense of reality, like The Bachelorette and like Love Island and Temptation, like all these things. It's like it just portrays such a false reality to people, and like
Yeah.
I really hope that doesn't actually rub off on people, but I think it does.
What even romance movies?
Right.
Right? Like, do I think you can achieve that type of love? Yes, but what they don't show is all the crap that comes with that.
Right. People expect like a 24/7, just constantly heart burning, like in love with someone. It's like, there are times of that, but that is not 90% of the time, to be honest.
Well, and it's really important that when you do have those lows, where's your effort put at?
Right.
You know, how important is effort in a relationship?
Right.
You know, like you said, settling. Have you ever heard of it kind of puts into this idea of, so people are out looking for a mate, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for their soulmate. Have you heard of male overperception versus female underperception bias?
Not exactly.
Okay.
Like, I understand what you're saying.
So it's this idea that men overperceive how much women are interested in them, and women underperceive how much men are interested in them. So we have this conundrum where it's like women and men are so bad at signaling to each other, or they don't understand what they're doing, right? That it causes this disconnect from a lot of men and women to find people that they actually like.
Right.
You know, men will sit there, and it gets worse with alcohol, right? Men tend to overperceive even more how much a woman likes them or what she's signaling. And I don't think women realize, and not saying that women can't dress in particular ways, but I don't think women realize that you're dealing with a society of men that a lot of them are single and lonely, and you're dressing a certain way, and these men have grown up on probably not healthy things on the internet, especially with internet access.
Right.
You would be remiss to see how much, like, what signal that's putting off, even if it's not what you're wanting to do. And that is partly on men and how they've,
their minds have been wired over time.
Been wired over time through, unhealthy habits. But
social media.
because you might be trying to impress one dude, but I'm telling you that blast radius of what you're trying to do for the one dude is happening to every dude in that room. Right. And women don't realize that. And then they get the unwanted attention that they don't ask for.
Right.
And then you have men that can't control themselves in situations. And then you have issues with finding people that you believe to be your soulmates.
Right.
So how do you think people go about removing those expectations? Or do you think it's good to have expectations?
I think having some level of expectation is good, right? Because understanding that you're single and that like people could be looking at you, like, I think that's important. But I think it's like you're told when you're looking for something like a relationship and you try to look too hard, you're never going to get one. It's just like, I feel like if you go into a room with these high expectations, like, yep, I'm going to find someone tonight, it's not going to happen because you're trying too hard. And it comes off as that way, I feel like, very obvious. So I just feel like removing those biases and like expectations.
Like a standpoint of abundance versus scarcity. Right.
I
think a lot of guys in particular.
Focusing on being authentic in yourself versus looking for other people is what's going to attract that. Right. So I think removing as much as that as you can before, I think that's important. Personally for me, what I would do. But I don't know. I know like for a while, like when I became single, like I was like looking way too hard and it just felt like nothing happened. I was like, okay, well, I'm just at a point now. I feel like I need to focus on myself, like working out, all that stuff. Right. So, I mean, after a couple months of just actually focusing on myself, like it felt like that actually happened.
Right. They say that when you focus on other things, the tangibles that come with, that's when things naturally attract you, kind of the law of attraction. Yeah. But I think as a man, when you sit and worry about and pour your life and your purpose in life into things that really do, one, build you, and two, fulfill you, there's an authenticity about you that I think people yearn for more now than ever. Right. Living in a society that's so fake. Right. Even when you're in person, people will fake what they are, right? Right. So I think when you're chasing those things, whatever it is you're doing, women naturally gravitate towards that. And money finds you, and good people find you if you're putting out your authentic self. Because I think the best of people come out when you're fulfilled in life. Mm-hmm. I think people that you don't like being around are people that they're discontent in some area of their life, right? Wherever it may be. Right. But what steps are you taking to build that necessarily?
Well, I think it's also important that there's always going to be stuff in your life that you're not fulfilled with, like you might fill one hole, but then a new one opens up, right? It's just like, you always have to be looking for ways to improve and fill that next thing that you want to improve on.
But that's the human endeavor. Yeah. Right. If you're chasing those things in a meaningful way, right? that's where you find that growth.
Yeah.
And you find that in relationships.
Yeah.
You know, how are you chasing each other?
Right.
What are you doing for each other?
And that person should push you to do that as well, you know?
Be able to sit there and have a conversation with you.
Right.
Be like, this is not the person I fell in love with.
Right.
Because I think people forget that too. The person you fell in love with is that should be a staple, but it should probably only get better. Like, that's the reality of it, is when you meet each other, you might not be financially set. You should become financially more set together, right? You both are probably, you're in good fitness, right? Why not continue to stay in that level of fitness or better?
Absolutely.
Right? There's no downside to that, right?
Right.
Or chasing God together and going on dates and dating each other and finding humor or things that you like together, but also understanding like you need your own passions, because people fell in love with that too. People fell in love with the person that had the passion for this, even if it's not theirs. There's like I don't even know, endearing quality of people who authentically push towards what they like, even if it's not what you
Right. Well, I feel like if you don't have that passion before you start dating someone, like that relationship is gonna be a lot harder, because you're gonna then cling on to everything they do.
Oh yeah.
Like, your girlfriend likes to go do this. Oh, I'll drop what I'm doing and go do that with you. Like, it's so important to still have your own passion, maintain that, because otherwise you're gonna cling to everything they do. You're gonna drop what you do, and like eventually they're gonna get tired of that, because they want a guy that has his own thing. Like,
there needs to be a little bit of mystery.
Yeah.
Like finding like, okay, this person's not always around, but they're around enough.
And not mystery is when like they don't know what you're doing. In my opinion, like I think communication is huge. Like, they know what you're doing, but like
they also understand like that's not my thing. Like, I'm gonna have my time to do my time. Yeah. Dating apps. So with dating apps offering endless options, are we afraid of commitment, or are we just more careful?
Man, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I feel like we could say the majority of people on dating apps aren't looking for something, right? Or if some people say they're looking for something, but like maybe they're looking for something in between. Like, if something good comes, I'll take it, but like maybe I'll just kind of mess around for now. But like, I don't know. I don't think they're very authentic, but I also cannot talk because I literally found my girlfriend on a dating app.
Right.
And so like, I feel like I can't say that that's not true, because I was looking for commitment and I just happened to find it.
Right.
But
a lucky few, maybe.
Yeah. I think it's a very hard place to look, but at the same time, it's like, I think a lot of people today are kind of in the mindset like, well, where else do I look?
Right.
Like, I don't want to find someone at a bar. That's a terrible place to find someone too. But it's just like a lot of people don't have other stuff outside of school or work, and so like they don't know where to look for people. So they cling to the dating apps.
Right. Especially men, because men don't want to go up to women in public and have conversations with them, because that's scary.
Right.
And the thing is we sit in a society where there's reason for that though.
Yeah.
Like,
a lot of
men have reason to be scared to some degree, because it's weird now, it seems like, to just be like, hey, I'm, so-and-so.
Right.
Nice to meet you.
Right.
That's like weird now, right? And if you think about it, all throughout history, dating in particular, it's been like semi-arranged. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So like, not necessarily like you're forced into it, but think about it.
I mean,
think about all the hometown people that marry each other, right? The person knows the person. It's easier to somewhat connect. You don't really know who that person is, but you have some qualities or some things that are in common, right? Mm-hmm. That's really hard to do when you're talking to people you've never met.
Right. Well, and I think it wasn't even until like the late 1800s, early 1900s that like dating became a thing. Like before that, it was all like prearranged stuff. It was like introductions, like families wanted their kids to like meet and become this. It's like,
it's strategic.
It is so recent in history. Like to us, it feels like a long time, 120, 140 years. That seems like a long time, but like in the overall view of it, that is nothing.
It's a very new concept. Yeah.
Right. So like, I feel like dating itself needs to be like rethought of a little bit. I think it needs to be reinvented almost.
Yeah. Because some of the chivalries, and it has been reinvented probably in the wrong ways.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's so much harder to date now. And dating apps in particular, although it kind of widens, I think, the view for your options, which is fair, right? Mm-hmm. Because you used to be kind of limited to, this is who's in my dating pool. These are my options, right? And going and making the best of it. Now you have all these options, which there's a power to that. There's a good side to that, right? You get to explore and really go meet people that maybe fit your narrative and your values. But at the same time, they've like dating apps in particular have disqualified such a large proportion of men in particular.
I mean, yeah, it's statistically men get way less swipes than a girl. I think.
Oh yeah.
Was it like 1 in 100 swipes or matches a guy gets an actual like date?
Have you the crazy stat right here? The mating inequality online is equivalent to the income inequality in Venezuela. that is the equivalent. Like
that's funny.
Yeah, that's where it's at right now. Like that's
right.
So they had done a study on it. 50 men, 50 women. 46 women focus on 4 men within that pool.
Wow.
And the other 46 men are sat to go and look at these other 4 women.
Right.
That's where that dating pool is at. Because women in particular, when they look for a man, as far as like wanting to date, the metrics they're looking for, historically have looked for signal of resources. So can you provide for me? Intelligence. Are you smart, competent within your peers, right? And kindness, right?
Okay.
Because think about it. I mean, even if you get somebody rich, at some point, if they're not nice to people, you're not going to want to be with that person.
Right.
But now, being on dating apps, the metrics have changed and women can solely focus on one, which makes it so much harder. And the signal of resources in particular. So it goes back to like the status, the money, you know, that sort of thing. That's the only thing they get to look at.
Right.
And it disqualified so many men. And it is, now men are single, young. They turn to artificial parts of intimacy, porn. And it's caused such a drastic, you know, the red pill community, things like that. So like, I think dating apps in particular have hurt men so much because of the women, how they, you know, dumb down what qualifies a man to be.
Right.
Whether if they push that to the side and had just really gotten to know that person, you'd be surprised, right?
Right.
But people don't come in with that guard up. They look for the signal of resources right away. Right. Women in particular. So,
and I think a dating app is another thing of like a false portrayal of how someone could be. You know,
like create your own persona.
Right. Like a lot of guys, I'm sure they could post them, like a frat dude posting himself in a suit, like doing all this, and it's just like you do not know the actual qualities of that person. Like they could be terrible, but just because they're only good looking, which like I get, it has to be based off like some sort of initial attraction, right? But like, I feels like that's what people are only looking at now sometimes.
Do you think there's a way to offset or fix this?
I think that's.
Or do you think it only gets worse?
I think that's just a decision somebody has to come to themselves. Like I don't think you can somehow interject that into all of society. I don't think that's possible. Like how would that happen? Unless everybody ends up, you know, being a Christian, going to church and like learning the same things, right? Like that's possible, but like,
right,
it's
indoctrinating,
right? But
what's
not
healthy for society,
right? But not everyone has all those same point of views, like religious views and everything. So it's like I don't think it's possible to interject that into everyone.
Well, I mean, so much so is like, do you think the dating app side of things, do you think that gets better, or do you think
No, I mean, dating apps will always push their own narratives and stuff onto people too. So like, that's what gets them sucked into it. You know, it's like politics.
Yeah. And like 1 in 3 men now are going to be single
their
entire lives.
Right.
Which is a scary thought.
Yeah. A little bit.
Right.
Like reproduction down, depression way up.
Yep.
It's just like, it's terrible. And that's how you get men that make terrible decisions too, because they fall into these terrible things and they become terrible decision makers. They become irrational. They make emotional decisions, which men should not be making emotional decisions. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't think dating apps will ever get better. I don't know how that could happen. I don't know if you have any ideas, but
I think they've created that sense of isolation. It's like exploded,
right?
With men, because they have to now qualify more than ever to be like a suitable mate for someone, and people can just write you off. But if you just got to know me, and I had this happen a lot to me, it's like, oh, well, I thought you were this, and this, or we didn't like you before this. And then you meet me and you're like, oh, you're actually like a really cool person. It's like, yeah, right. But so are you. Right. Like, I'm not saying that's just something that's a me thing, but you're really cool too. Right. And I had my ideas about you, and maybe that's not true. So like putting those walls down. Right. Which is tough. You know, I think a lot of people are terrible at that. Like you hold grudges against someone, or you see them one way, or you hear one thing about them and like you just shut them off as that. Well, we all think we deserve more than we do. So we overinflate what we think we're deserving of when it comes to women or women to men or whatever in life. But we'll complain about the work we never did. Right. The results we didn't get from the work we never did. How much personal growth do you think needs to happen before a relationship? Do you think people are expecting love to fix them, or are they and like skipping the work?
I don't know. I feel like my view of this has changed over time because like for a while I was like, I need to fully heal myself, like completely be fine with myself before, I start dating someone. Like I think the part in like being secure in yourself, that's important, right? But like as far as like healing maybe like past stuff, past trauma, like baggage that you have from past relationships, like to me, I don't think that needs to be fully gone before you start dating someone because I think that's stuff that you and a partner can work on together. Because like a partner can help build your trust. They can help show that like, hey, I'm not those people. Like,
well, how do you know? Can you handle those things until you're in that situation?
Right. I mean, I think having those talks right away with people, like me and my girlfriend, our first or second date, like we talked about like stuff that we've had issues with before in our relationships and like stuff we don't want in our next one. And like, I think that really just opens the door to like, okay, this person's like vulnerable and authentic with me. Like that's something I can work with. I think it's important to realize that everybody's going to have some sort of baggage coming into a relationship unless they've never...
Are you willing to take the baggage? Yeah.
Right. And obviously that's your own decision, like depending on what the baggage is, but
how much of that baggage do you think people are willing to accept? I think a lot of people fail to accept baggage or are afraid to accept baggage.
Yeah.
Not so much due to what they can handle, but what they feel is perceived by society. So now more than ever, people make decisions about their partner or what they're willing to put up with a partner based on other people's thoughts. Will this person, unless it being, do they fulfill me? Do they fulfill what I want people to look at me like? And it's a selfish decision.
Right. I don't know. This is like a little like different topic, but like it has to do with like hookups in my opinion. Like that's why a lot of people don't pursue relationships. I feel like is because they don't want to take on that responsibility of someone else and like what might come with them. So they don't want a relationship. So they're just looking to do that, and
it's easy, but it's very dangerous.
Yeah, it is. Well, I think it's like personally as like a Christian, that's awful too, to like do that because it looks as like it's like a transaction. You're treating them as a product in a transaction versus like an actual human. Because if the sex with them is great and the stakes of like the relationship, meaning they don't want one, like are low, then you're like, okay, great, I'll just keep doing this with them. But if the sex isn't good and they want a relationship with you all of a sudden, then it's like, oh, I'm out, I'm going to leave.
Right.
And that's treating someone as like a product and a transaction, which is absolutely terrible.
Well, it's weird because I've had this happen to me, which typically it's not usually women doing it to men, but I had a woman recently that was like, literally told someone, and they told me that she was waiting to see how good the sex was to see if she wanted to continue talking to me.
Right.
And how does that make you, more than that?
And how does that make you feel?
Oh yeah. Now I'm looking at that and it widened my perspective on like, men do such a bad job of objectifying women and making them feel some sort of way. But then men can want to sit there and wonder like, well, why this? It's like, why won't women talk to me? Whatever. It's like, you're portraying that. You're a big reason as to why women don't want to commit to you, right? Mm-hmm. Because you're coming in with an anti-commitment stance in the first place. Mm-hmm. It's on men. Men also want to complain about why, women should just accept me for who I am. No. Have you built yourself?
Right.
Who are you as a person? Do you even qualify for that woman? You want to say you want that woman, but have you taken the steps to, she's a woman of quality. Have you taken the steps to make yourself a man of quality that's deserving of that? Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, coming from a perspective of like, oh, let's hook up, you're already at a disadvantage.
Right.
Because what it signals is, one, I want to use you. And two, I think for men in particular, I think it's their way of showing in an internal way that they don't feel they're qualified enough to date that person.
Right.
Like it's almost a shell of themselves. They're disapproving of themselves in that dating relationship. Mm-hmm. Because if you thought you were, you wouldn't pursue it in that manner.
Well, I think personally, like I feel like the people that do feel that way and like they just pursue hookups and not relationships is because they aren't secure in themselves and they aren't confident in the person they are yet. So they feel like that's a
short-term fulfillment.
Exactly. And in the long term, it's actually hurting you a lot. So I just feel like with someone as a Christian believer, it's just like something you should really avoid now. And like, that's something I've had to learn over time because coming into college, like I wasn't even a believer at all. And so like, that's something I was like, oh, I'm looking forward to this. You know, it's like, it's so stupid looking back at it.
Right.
It's dumb. I feel like you've been in a similar situation and mindset before too. So,
oh, absolutely.
Right.
How important do you think it is for men to build themselves?
I mean, it's like, I think it's everything, right? Like, again, it depends what you're looking for, right? If you don't want a relationship, do whatever you want. I'm sure you can find women that will accept you as that in the short term.
Yeah.
But like long-term wise, like if you want a family, you want a wife, you have to build yourself into a man that can have that stuff and maintain it. Because when you have a wife and you have children, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of financial stability, it takes a lot of mental capacity and stability. Like, I think it's everything.
Emotional stability too.
Absolutely.
Like, can you control your emotions? Because women are emotional creatures.
Right.
Understanding, like, I think when men have a realistic view on what women are, things get much more clear.
Yeah.
Like, understanding that, like, sometimes in a situation where a woman has an issue, it's not about, because we think logically, it's not about explaining something logically to a woman. She doesn't care. She might actually know the answer. She probably knows the answer.
Right.
But she doesn't care to you explain it logically. You need to understand she just wants comfort.
Right.
And if that's, inconsiderate, or it's not, it's not in your best interest at that moment to do, you have no right to be in the relationship with that person.
Absolutely.
Because how do you expect that person to do that for you? You need to show up.
Right.
Sometimes you're going to be better than another person, mentally in that state, but are you willing to then overload a little bit of that and help that person out?
Right.
And men are not, right? And then, like, the physical standpoint, can you protect your family, right?
Yep.
Signaling to your kids that you're a good father, right? I think part of that's being fit. The financial thing, that's huge. I know it shouldn't be the marker, but now living in the world we live in, financial stability is big. Women look for that.
Right.
Because back then the financial marker for men was physical, right? It went from like a physical, right? You were the most capable man you could hunt. You were the biggest dude. That was who got all the women in the village. Right. Now it's financially. You got the money you can provide for me. There's stability in that. Because really what women are seeking is stability more than anything. Mm-hmm. And that can cause them. But then again, you're in that conundrum of like, I love you for what you provide.
Right.
And not for who you are.
Well, how important do you think it is that like you don't talk about your financial situation or success with a woman like right away versus waiting to tell them?
I've come to learn that it shows in itself. So I spend money on things that, like, obviously experiences and stuff like that, but I spend money on things that signal that I'm financially in a decent spot. So clothes, hygiene, smell, my car,
right,
my apartment's clean, whatever, it's put together. Those are all small signals that I'm financially in a good spot, right? I'm in a good headspace and responsible. I don't need to sit there and go, this is how much money I have in my bank account, right? And
maybe not like telling them exactly how much you make, right? But like,
no, and I think it's a weird answer for a girl to ask you that too. I mean, I wear like watches, right? Not that saying women know what those are, but to me, that's a signal of a little bit of financial wealth, right? A little bit of financial stability, right? And then competence. I think it's hard to find a dude who is competent and intelligent without having money. And because really intelligence is just measured by, do you get the things you want out of life? Mm-hmm. Like, you can know all the facts you want, but did you get what you wanted out of life? I think that's what intelligence is. That's why a lot of people that become wealthy or in a good spot, they were like C students, D students. Right. Had nothing to do with what you learned, what facts you can revise. Did you get the resources and the things you want out of life, and how did you get there?
And it's like, you can read all the books you want and you can sound smart when you talk, but it's like your actions and things like you do and have show that.
Well, people can tell if you're like fake intelligent too.
Right.
The authenticity in which you speak, right? Yeah, I think it's so important that men build themselves. We talk about the right time to start dating. Right. As far as emotion, like you said, I think it's important that you can help each other in those aspects, but I don't think a man should be looking to date if he's not in a spot where he can take care of a woman.
Right. Well, it's like, if you got to have a relationship, like, do you think there's like a certain time he should wait to get into one though?
Say that again.
Like, if a guy just got to have a relationship, like, is there a certain time period in which you think he should wait to get into a new one? Like, should he wait 4 months, 6 months? Like,
yeah, that's interesting because two things. One, I think it's hard. It's easy for women to do, right? It's much easier for a woman to go bounce into another relationship. Not so much for a guy, which I think there's superpower in that for both women. Like women taking the path of not jumping right back into it, there's a lot of good things there. Women also process breakups a lot easier than men. They process faster because they actually emotionally take it head on. Men delay. They act like they're okay. And then the feelings hit later. So it takes them substantially longer. But I think it's important for men to sit and actually like, and women too, reflect on why that didn't work. So after my first and only relationship, I genuinely started diving into research on things like relationships and people and psychology and stuff like that. One, fulfills me too. I like to like learn, but really in reality, it stemmed back to like, the more I understand about people and how people work, the more I understand about myself and why things didn't work. And being so like realistically open with who I am as a person and knowing what my flaws are, you know, because if you get asked a question in job interview or interview, what's your biggest weakness? A lot of people can't really sit there and be authentic about that.
Right. They make something up, you know?
Yeah.
Which job interviews, it happens, right? But like when it comes to like dating someone, I think you should actually know that answer.
It's an interesting question. Some people should ask, what's your biggest weakness?
Right.
In a relationship? What's your biggest downfall?
Yeah, I mean, that's something I literally
asked. Like, what's your biggest red flag?
right. No, that's literally something I asked my girlfriend, like one of our first couple dates was like, what's something like you did in a past relationship that like you're trying to work on now or like you don't want to carry over into a new one?
Right.
Because like, I think it's important to recognize that about yourself and let the other person know like, hey, like this is something that would like happen, but I recognize it, I own it, and now I'm working on it. Yeah. I think that's huge.
Yeah.
And most people don't have the ability to do that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Are modern ideas of masculinity and femininity helping or hurting the way we show up in relationships?
I think it has to do with the other person's values first off, because I've been with someone where their values didn't allow for me to show like my so-called masculinity like as much as I wanted to, right?
Right.
But then I now am with someone that like said, hey, I want you to lead us in a relationship. Like I want Christ to be our center and like you lead that way. So like I think it depends on if the person you're with allows that to happen, but like as a society as a whole, I feel like it's definitely it ebbs and flows, you know? Like I think for a while there, like during COVID, a little bit after, it was like femininity was pushed huge.
Yeah.
And
feminism. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, and it was weird as a guy. It's like, what is going on? Like, can I like not be a man?
Right.
And
well, at one point, the worst thing was to be a white male in society.
Right. It's like you get hated on for being that.
Yeah.
You
need to be sorry for being that.
Right. And like, obviously there's stuff we do wrong, right? But every human does stuff wrong. It's like every human of every race, skin color does something wrong. It's like, I mean, we can get a lot of hate for that, right? It's like, you don't even realize like what you're doing, like the privileges, like, okay, you know, it's like everybody has their own faults and it's like.
And their own privileges in life.
Right. It's like, you can't categorize everyone. One bad apple doesn't ruin the whole bunch.
Right.
It's like.
And applying that to like feminism or femininity too. Like, I think my worldview on this is the closer you get to gender roles, and I know it's a traditional look, but think of like, okay, if you were stranded on an island, what would the men go do? Hunt, gather, or hunt and stuff. What would women do? Right? There would be separate roles. And the closer you are in a survival situation, the closer you become naturally to your gender roles.
Right.
Naturally. Like God made men physically capable. God also made women emotionally so smart and in tune. It's why they can take care of
their
babies.
Ability to connect with kids.
Right. Like I'm not taking my kids to an all-male nursery. That's weird, right? And so it's like, I think that it's a traditional view, but I think being close to your gender roles and being realistic about what those are, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But society is also propaganded that, okay, gender equality. Why would you want to be equal? Why would as a woman would you want to be equal with the man? Right. Why would you want to go through what a man has to go through?
If somebody knocks on the door at night when you're sleeping, you are not going to the door.
No.
You're going to tell me to go to the door.
But like, dude, like think about all the stress that men have to put up in their lives and the expectations they have to live up to. Not saying that women don't have hard things, but why as a woman would you want to be a man?
Right.
Why would you want to do that?
I feel like
there's not an upside to that. Being a man is hard, and there's a privilege to it of building who you are. But women should in my opinion, have an easier life.
Right.
You know, they should be in comfort. They should be in loving environments, right? Because that's where they flourish, right? With kids and in those environments. And some women, maybe not all, like, but in a generalization, why would you want to be a man and have to handle the stress and anxiety and overthinking and expectations you have to live up to?
Right.
You don't. And so I think the closer we get to where we fit in those rules, and I think there can be malleable pieces to that.
Right.
In society as it changes.
Well, like, I don't want to be the guy that's like, oh, no, you can't work, can't do that. It's like, no, like, if you want to be a teacher, great. You're with kids. Like, that's what you're good at. Like, do that. I'm not saying you can't work. I'm not saying you have to stay at home all day, do this, that.
And so the man thing would be, I'm going to make more money. And so that you can still have a really good life and do what you love.
Right.
And I'm willing to take on to that because I love you.
Exactly.
Right. Like, that'd be the man thing to do.
Yeah.
But instead, it seems like now it's like, and it's weird because you have the push and pull of like, women want men that can provide and be busy and all that stuff, but they also want a man to be with them all the time.
Right.
Well,
it's
not
like,
okay.
they're like, well, I want to be an independent woman. It's like, okay, how independent can you really be? Like, at what point are you going to realize, okay, I feel like I need someone here with me, you know? I feel like I've talked to women about this. It's like, they want to be so independent. Like, they literally say, like, I don't need a man. It's like, I don't know how I feel about that.
That's insulting.
But yeah.
It's insulting to a man.
It's
and
like,
they wonder why a man's not attracted to that.
Right.
And like being loud and over the top. And like you said, independent. I think there's good to have independence. Like, maybe not being financially dependent. So this is where I look at it as like, let me provide for you without the stipulations. There's no like catch, right? I want you to chase what you love.
Right.
Your passion, right? I don't want you to sit around the house and twiddle your thumbs, but I also would love for you to raise my children. Right. Right. But like, as a man, that's a lot of responsibility you have to be willing to take on. Right. And a lot of men are not willing to do that. And so women have almost, and again, I put this back on men. I think women have become less feminine because men have become less masculine. So because men have stepped out of their masculine roles and are willing to take the risk and things like that, women have said, okay, fine, I'll just be more independent then because you're not going to take care of me anyway. And I had a girl tell me this one time in an interview when I'm having a conversation with her. She goes, I'm masculine, but only because I'm waiting for someone to come let me be feminine. Mm-hmm. And I think for a lot of women, that is the case. They were just waiting for a man to finally step into the role. But men are also afraid to do that because they think they're going to chase a woman off or lose a woman instead of just having self-respect for themselves. Right. And we've seen people do that.
But it's just such a hard line because as a guy, like, if you see a woman who's like trying to be more independent, it's like, you don't even want to go after him. But then you just said there's a girl that was like, well, I'm doing that until a guy lets me. It's like, it's such a hard line to draw. It's like, do we want them to be feminine before we meet them, or like,
I think just stepping.
It's so hard to.
It's probably just stepping in, and it goes back to the authenticity point too, of like, just be who you are. Just step into who you are anyway. Doesn't matter. Like, if you're masculine, and like I'm traditional and I'm masculine. That being said, there's things I won't put up with a woman, and so if she's gonna break those boundaries or not, you know, because she'll know where I stand with things, but I also know where she'll stand, and I expect that as well. So like, if they want to leave because they don't like a certain thing about me because I'm too masculine for them, okay. Like, being able to let that go and just accept that, you know, that, but fit into the role that you feel is going to put you in a good spot. Because as much as people want to sit here and say that feminism this and, you know, toxic masculinity, women chase the men who are most masculine. Right. Mm-hmm. They're fit, they're wealthy, they signal intelligence, respect with their peers. That's masculinity in a whole, like healthy masculinity, right? That's what women go for. So,
well, like, I don't know, have you ever had a woman like try to like bring down your masculinity or like just being a man or a good person in general? Like, have you ever had a woman try to like suppress you in that way?
No, I don't think necessarily. I mean, I've had women, if I tell them I want to take care of them, they think that's weird. Right. I have had that, and that doesn't make sense to me either. I think they think though, like, they jump to the conclusion of, and when men say, I want to take care of you, women go, okay, this dude wants to control my life. He wants me to be financially independent on him. He wants me to depend on him. Yes and no. I do want to be the person that takes care of you, right? But do I want to like control you? Those are two different things. And that's where you have that boundary line is they've taken men who control out of an insecurity or lack of, and they've associated with men who are truly masculine that just want to take care of you because they love you, because you provide a lot of things for them, right? because that's just the masculine essence in a sense.
Right.
And so women have pooled those all in together, as well as men have pooled that with women. These women that want to just, you know, independent, you know, I don't need no man women. We've pulled them in with a lot of women and saying that, well, women just don't want this and that. So there's some truth to it.
Right.
But if you become a certain man at some point, you'd be surprised. You get a lot of female attention, right? Like you're not in a position to even sit there and complain about that because you're not a man.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of how I look at that.
Yeah.
And
well, I guess I just asked that original question because, like, someone I dated in the past, like, I opened the door for another woman, just like let them walk through. Like, what in my opinion, are respectful.
That's manners. That's respect.
And I got yelled at. It's like, wow, like that's crazy. I couldn't open the door. That's crazy.
You couldn't explain that either. It was hard to explain to that person.
No, I mean, she was like, why would you open the door for another woman? I'm like, I'm just being a nice person. Like
that's stemming from some other issues. I think.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, that's crazy. Like if a woman doesn't allow you to excel on like being the person you want to be, it's just like,
yeah,
that's how you know. It's like, they're not it for me, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's important to realize that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can we really balance love, independence, and ambition? Or is it something always needing to be sacrificed?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Can we really balance love, independence, and ambition? Or is it something always sacrificed? So, like where your goals in life, what you want to do. Do you think there's a balance there with all those things? Or do you think you're going to ultimately have to sacrifice something for someone?
I don't think there can ever be a perfect balance. No. Because if there's someone else intertwined with you, I guess, are you saying just as like your own person or with someone?
Okay. For example, so I had this in general with my first girlfriend. One reason that I think I really pushed away from the fact of like it being long-term, I got out of it before it became really long-term because of the withholding me from going where I need to go, right? Knowing that I had big dreams. I never felt comfortable in a small town, right? Within my surroundings. I never just fit in. She wanted to be that, right? Have the same friends for the rest of her life, whatever that may be in that environment. And that just wasn't me. And I think that those things cause resentment down the line.
Oh, absolutely.
You need someone that's willing to some degree, malleable. And I think it should be more of a woman for a man than a man for a woman, personally. Because a woman's focus, I don't think should be her profession. I think she should love her job. But being a mother is super important, and you can do that anywhere. Right? Like a man, again, I think the man, his role is to put himself in positions to put your family and you in the best possible position.
Right.
But I just wonder, is there like a balance there? Should you have to give up ambition you have? Should you have to give up independence you have?
Right.
To find love?
I mean, again, I think it's very situational. Like, I think if the guy has the better paying job, right? And like, I think a decision on like where you live should be a little bit more up to like catered to him because he can't just give up the job he has when it's providing.
Right.
Like that's tough. But I think it's so situational. I don't feel like there's ever gonna be a perfect balance. But I feel like it's something that there is going to be compromise along the way on both sides, personally, because I feel like women should. I don't even know how to word this.
So my thing in on it is like looking at the independent side of things.
Right.
I think we live in a society where we think there should just be a balance and there shouldn't be a sacrifice.
No.
And I see in particular of like, okay, so I'm in a relationship, but I'm still going to go out every weekend. I'm still going to, have male friends. I'm still going to do this, that, whatever. Okay, I'm glad that you're independent and there's things you like to do, but you have to give some of that up.
Right.
It's called growing up and putting away childish things.
Right.
And people are not willing to make sacrifices now more than ever for other people. And then they wonder why things don't work out.
Well, I guess I was thinking like big goals and stuff, like long term.
Like,
when you're talking about that stuff too, like, yeah, absolutely. Like that's something I've literally had to learn to give up too, is like going out drinking all the time. It's like, it's so dumb because there's no benefit to that at all.
None.
Like all it's going to do is one, make the other person worry. And like, you're putting yourself in a bad situation where bad decisions can happen, where there's no good decisions to be made, but there's lots of bad decisions to be made.
Right.
It's like learning to sacrifice stuff like that. And like, maybe just little like vices that you've had in the past. So like you could do while you're by yourself. Like you have to learn to give that stuff up.
Well, and I think that's what love is I think people have this construed idea of love, but love is quite literally giving up things for someone else or something else.
Right.
Right. We follow God's rules or to our best ability because we love God. Right. If you love someone, you're willing to give up certain things for them. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, I promise you that, you know, they'll be like, oh, this person's this way. This woman's this way. This man's this way. I promise you that at some point, a man will change who he is. A woman will change who they are for a specific person.
Right.
When they find that. Right. They will change things about them because that's life altering to them. Right. And we just live in a society now where we think we can have our cake and eat it too. And we can go out every weekend. We can just have friends. And it's like overstep people's boundaries and not respect those things. Right. But at the same time, like I'm very intentional about asking a woman if I'm very interested in her, which you can tell pretty quick. Yeah. Have, like you said, second date. Hey, these are my goals in life. Are you willing to somewhat conform to those? Or are you going to be like just wanting to do this the rest of your life? Right. Right. Where's your growth? Like asking those questions, seeing what their growth mindset is. I think that's super important. You know, are you able to move forward together? Because if not, it's going to cause a lot of resentment down the line, I think.
Well, I don't think most people even understand what a growth mindset is. Most people don't understand that because they just live so in the moment. They might like think ahead of to like, oh, well, when I graduate in 3 months, I'll get this job. It's like most people don't have a growth mindset at all. They just are so focused on right now versus like growth mindset is like having a 5-year plan and like breaking it down into each year. And it's like, okay, what am I going to do now to set myself up for then? And like, this is a goal that I cannot sacrifice. Like I have to do this to get here. But then there's gonna be other things along the way, little small stuff that like, okay, I can sacrifice that with someone.
And I think men do this more than women, but men will bend their reality to women because they're attractive. Right. And so they go, because this girl is pretty and I'm afraid of losing this person. She doesn't like this about me, but I really like it myself. Let me give that up. Yeah. I mean, that's a dangerous game to play because eventually you just resent that person. Yeah. You cannot, if someone's withholding you from something that you truly find to be a purpose and fulfillment in your life, that's not your person. Right. It's just not. Because if they loved you, they'd let you do it. Right. If they'd love you, they'd accept that part about you because it is who you are. Yep. If a girl told me that I need to talk less, no. If a girl told me, okay, you don't get to do this podcast anymore, I don't like what you say. Nope. Sorry. I love doing this podcast. Right. And I don't really care.
It allows me to express myself.
Right. Accepting like the right person is going to accept you for who you are. They're going to water you, not pick you. Because if you love a flower, or if you like a flower, you'll pick it. Mm-hmm. If you love a flower, you'll water it. Right. So like understanding where you're watered and where you're picked. Right. So.
Like, how do you feel about resentment? Like, how important do you think
you got to see, you have to see it ahead. I think resentment is something that you see, but people push away quickly. You're going to know, like, okay, this person doesn't fit a very important value or narrative in my life. And I think a lot of people have that happen, and it scares them. They go, I'm just pushed to the side.
Well, I feel like a lot of people don't even understand how resentment starts or, like, where it comes from. Like, it's not something that they recognize until it's already happened.
Or someone who goes, I'm okay with giving this up for you. Right. They only say it and mean it in the moment.
And
have you really truly reflected? Like, does it?
Right. You know, I feel like they won't recognize that that's going to lead to resentment at all because I've done that before in past relationships. It's like, and friendships, not just relationships, with friendships too. It's like you allow them to keep getting away with stuff that you don't like, and like you avoid the hard conversation with them.
Taking accountability. Yeah.
Yeah. And it sucks because once you already have that resentment, it's so hard to get rid of. Right. And ultimately it leads to you acting different around that person. Like your patience is less with them. Like resentment is like one of the biggest downfalls, in my opinion, of a relationship. Right. That most people don't even understand how it happens.
So just understanding, like coming into a relationship and when you're with people in friendships, whatever, you have to come with an open book, but also understand what are your core values? What do you really like? Who you are? What are things you're not willing to change? Things you are willing to change. Have those conversations. Right. Right. I think it's important.
Well, I think
what are you willing to give up? Like give up childish things.
Right. Well, I think having open communication, those hard conversations right away, like when something happens, is so huge because when you push them off to the side, it just builds up. Yeah. And so like I've stressed so much to like my partner that like when we have something that we're uncomfortable about or we don't like we have to tackle it on like together right away because otherwise it's not it's gonna be the demise. Like it's gonna build I told her, I was like, I don't know if you know what resentment is, but like it's gonna lead to resentment, and like if we don't allow each other to do certain things that like we want and our goals, like we're gonna have so much resentment down the line.
Right.
But
yeah,
I don't know. I think that's something I didn't even know what resentment was until like my last relationship.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. Well, I appreciate you, Chase, coming on and talking to us about all this good stuff. Yeah, we had a really good conversation.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on. So,
all right, that's it for episode 3 of Afterthoughts. See you guys next week.